The city felt different today. Mia could feel it in her bones, that quiet hum that comes just before something big happens. She stood outside the shopping mall, her breath turning into little clouds of steam in the cold December air. Her three little girls, Hope, Faith, and Joy, were busy laughing and singing a happy, messy version of Jingle Bells. They ran around in circles, their tiny feet tapping on the ground. Mia smiled, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders, but for this moment, she let herself enjoy the laughter of her children. She gripped the grocery bags tightly in her hands, counting every penny in her head. It wasn't much, but it was enough. She'd make it work. She always did. Suddenly, something made her stop in her tracks. Above them, the big digital billboard flickered and changed. An ad for diapers disappeared, and in its place, there was something new. A sleek, shiny ad for a company called Ithalgard Technologies. But it wasn't just the ad that caught Mia's attention. It was the face that filled the entire screen. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell to support our growth. Tell us where you are watching from and what you feel about this story. The face was huge, easily 10 feet tall, and it looked so familiar. Mia blinked, trying to focus. Her heart skipped a beat. It was a face she hadn't seen in so long, a face she thought she'd forgotten. Faith, always the bold one, stopped singing and stared at the screen. "Look, Mommy," she said, pointing up. "That man looks like us." Mia's heart raced. Hope squinted her eyes, tilting her head. "He has my nose," she said, a little too loudly. "Mommy, Mommy." Her voice was full of excitement. And then came the whisper from Joy. "Is he our daddy from the pictures?" Mia froze. The world around her seemed to disappear. The traffic noise, the people walking by, it all faded into nothing. All she could see were those eyes staring down at her from the screen. Kai's eyes. Her heart pounded. It felt like the air had been knocked out of her lungs. She stood there, unable to move, as memories rushed back. Memories of a love she had tried to bury, of a man who had once been her world. A man who didn't even know these three little girls existed. The grocery bag in her hand slipped, and a glass jar of pasta sauce fell to the ground, shattering into a million pieces. Red sauce spilled everywhere, staining the pavement like a wound opening up. But Mia didn't move. She couldn't. She was frozen in place, staring at the giant screen, whispering one word to the cold night air. Kai, Hope, Faith, and Joy were still staring up at the screen, their eyes wide with wonder. "Is he our daddy, Mommy?" Joy repeated, her voice barely a whisper. Mia felt a tear slip down her cheek. The years of silence, of separation, had felt so long. And now, here he was, standing larger than life on a billboard, looking back at them. She could feel their little eyes on her, waiting for an answer, but she didn't know what to say. Was he their father? The man in the picture? The one she had loved so deeply? The man who had left without a word, without even knowing he had a family waiting for him? Mia closed her eyes for a moment, trying to breathe. But her heart ached too much. She couldn't answer them, not yet. How could she tell them that the man they were looking at was the same one who had broken her heart and left her alone to raise them? "Mommy," Hope asked, her voice trembling with curiosity. "Why don't we go meet him?" Mia shook her head slowly, trying to regain her composure. "No, baby," she whispered. "We can't." She looked down at her girls, feeling their tiny hands still gripping hers. How could she explain the truth? The truth that she wasn't sure herself? She couldn't just walk up to him and pretend everything was okay. Not after everything. Not after the years of heartache. But as the wind bit at her cheeks and the city continued on around them, Mia could not help but wonder. What if this was the sign she had been waiting for? What if he was finally ready to come back? For a brief moment, just a tiny moment, Mia allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. Mia couldn't sleep that night. She sat by the window, looking out at the city lights, their soft glow barely reaching her apartment. The cold outside didn't bother her anymore. It was the chill inside her heart that made her feel distant from everything, even her own thoughts. The sight of Kai's face on the billboard had sent waves of shock through her. It was like she had been thrown back into a world she thought she'd left behind. Her three girls were asleep in the next room, their gentle breaths rising and falling in the quiet. She smiled softly at the sound. They were her world, her everything. They didn't know the weight she carried. They only knew the love she gave them, the comfort, the safety. But what about their father? Would they ever know him? Would they ever get the chance to call him daddy, the way they called her mommy? Mia's fingers traced the edge of the window, her mind racing through memories of Kai, memories of their time together, of how they had dreamed of a future that was now so far out of reach. She remembered the first time they met. It had been in a tiny coffee shop, one of those places tucked away in the corner of the city, filled with old books and the smell of freshly ground beans. Kai had been sitting at a corner table, scribbling on his laptop, his eyes sharp, his focus intense. She had noticed him right away, the way he seemed to carry the world in his gaze, and yet, there was something tender about him. He had looked up, caught her eye, and smiled. A crooked smile, full of charm. "You're not here for the coffee, are you?" he had asked, his voice a low, confident drawl. She had laughed, shaking her head. "I'm here to avoid my problems." He had chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "I think we all are. But coffee's not going to solve them, is it?" That was how they started talking. And from there, it had only grown. An easy friendship that turned into something deeper, something more. They shared dreams, whispered secrets, and a love that felt like it could conquer anything. But life, as it often does, had a way of throwing obstacles in their path. Kai's dreams were bigger than hers, and they pulled him away, further and further. Eventually, he had to leave. And now, 5 years later, here he was again, not just in the city but in their lives, in a way Mia had never expected. Mia stood up from the window and walked to the small kitchen. The coffee pot was still warm from earlier, the faint smell of it lingering in the air. She poured herself a cup, trying to steady her thoughts. She didn't want to wake the girls, didn't want them to see her like this, so torn, so unsure. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. The noise of the city felt miles away. It was just her now, her thoughts, and the memories she had tried so hard to forget. But the truth was, she hadn't forgotten. Kai had been her first love, the one she thought would always be there. But then, he had left, just as easily as he had come into her life. He had made promises, told her he would come back, that they would have a future together. But promises had been broken. And now, 5 years later, he was back, not as the man she remembered, but as something else entirely. A billionaire CEO, a stranger who had only a passing resemblance to the boy she had fallen in love with. Mia's mind drifted back to the day he had left. They had argued that day, right before he disappeared. She had found out she was pregnant, and Kai, who had once promised her the world, had run. He had said things that hurt her deeply, things about their future, things she couldn't erase from her mind. And she had been left alone to raise their children, with no one to help, no one to turn to except herself. She sighed, her breath shaky. She wasn't angry anymore. At least, she didn't think she was. She was just afraid. Afraid that bringing Kai back into their lives would only cause more pain. That the love she had buried so deep inside her would only be torn open again, only to be crushed by the weight of the years that had passed. But the girls, hope, faith, and joy, they deserved to know their father. They deserved to have the chance to know the man who had given them life. Mia couldn't deny that. But was she ready to let him in? Could she let him back in after everything? Could she trust him again? A knock at the door broke her thoughts. Her heart skipped a beat. She wasn't expecting anyone. Mia hesitated for a moment before walking to the door. She opened it slowly, and there he was, Kai, standing in the doorway, looking like a man who had just stepped out of her dreams. "Maya," he said, his voice softer than she remembered. "I need to talk to you." Mia's breath caught in her throat when she saw Kai standing there. He was so different, and yet, in some strange way, he was still the same. His suit was sharp, tailored to perfection, his dark eyes as intense as ever. But there was something else in his gaze now, something softer. Something that made her heart race in a way she hadn't felt in years. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The space between them felt wide, a canyon of time and pain that neither of them had ever really crossed. Mia stood frozen in the doorway, unsure of what to do, how to move. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times in her mind, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of it. Kai shifted, his expression tense, but his voice was steady as he spoke. "Maya, he paused, running a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. "I don't know what you're feeling right now, but I need to talk. We need to talk. About them." Maya glanced over her shoulder, toward the little ones sleeping soundly in the other room. She couldn't hear their breaths anymore, but the weight of their presence, their innocence, was overwhelming. This was about them now, not just about her and Kai anymore. "Come in," she said, stepping aside reluctantly, her heart pounding in her chest. As soon as he crossed the threshold, the tension in the room seemed to rise. He didn't sit immediately, just stood there for a moment, his eyes scanning the room, as if taking in the life that had unfolded in his absence. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "I didn't know. Not until now." His voice broke slightly, the words heavy with regret. Maya's eyes flickered toward the bedroom door, where she could hear a faint giggle from joy as she stirred in her sleep. She felt a knot tighten in her chest. She couldn't stop herself from speaking, even though she knew it would hurt. "They've missed you. They have no idea who you are, but they've always asked about you. They've asked why you aren't here, why they don't have a daddy. I've tried to give them everything. I've tried to be both mother and father, but I can't do it all." Her voice wavered, and she quickly wiped away a tear that had escaped. Kai looked down at his feet, guilt creeping into his expression. He stepped forward, slowly, as if afraid of what might happen if he moved too quickly. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry, Maya. I've been a fool. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was wrong. I never wanted to leave you. I never wanted to hurt you." Maya felt her heart breaking all over again. "You hurt me by not being here. You hurt me by not knowing our daughters existed, by not even trying to reach out." The words hung in the air, thick and painful. Kai opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His eyes searched hers, filled with an ocean of emotion, regret, longing, pain, and an unspoken apology. He didn't know how to fix it. He didn't know how to make up for 5 years of silence. Finally, he spoke again, his voice low and full of emotion. "I don't know how to make it right. I don't know how to fix what's broken, but I want to try. For them. For you. I want to be their father. I want to be the man I should have been all along. I don't expect anything from you, Maya. I just want a chance to prove that I'm not who I was before." Maya stood still, her heart pounding in her chest. She could see the truth in his eyes, but was that enough? Was it enough to heal the wound that had been carved so deep in her heart? Was it enough to bring back the man she had once loved, or had too much time passed? She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her own decision pressing down on her. "The girls, they deserve to know who you are. They deserve to have a father in their life. But I don't know if I can let you in. I've kept them safe for so long. I've kept them away from the pain of not knowing you, of not understanding why you left. I don't know how to trust you again." Kai's gaze softened, and for a moment, he didn't say anything. Instead, he stepped closer, just enough that she could feel his presence without being overwhelmed. He extended his hand, not as a plea, but as an offer. "I'm not asking for you to trust me overnight," he said quietly. "I am just asking for the chance to show you that I can be the man they need, the father they deserve. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care if it's messy. I just want to be here, in whatever way you'll let me." Maya stood there, her heart in her throat, trying to decide whether to take his hand or to close the door on him for good. She couldn't keep going back and forth like this. She couldn't keep pretending like she had all the answers. The pain was still there, but so was the possibility of something better, something real. She looked down at his outstretched hand, then up into his eyes. And in that moment, she saw something more than the man who had walked away. She saw the man who was standing in front of her now, vulnerable, regretful, but determined. Finally, her hands trembled as she reached for his. "I'll let you try," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But it's not just about you anymore. It's about them." Kai's eyes softened, and for the first time since he had arrived, he smiled. It was small, but it was there. And for the first time in a long time, Maya felt a spark of hope. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell to support our growth. Comment where you are watching from and what you think about this story. The days that followed felt like a delicate balance between hope and fear, like walking on a tightrope with no safety net beneath. Maya had agreed to let Kai back in, but the truth was, she didn't know what that would look like. Could he really be the father he promised to be? Could they rebuild what had been broken all those years ago? The girls were still adjusting to the idea of having him in their lives. Hope was cautious, always watching him with those sharp, curious eyes of hers, as if trying to figure out who he really was. Faith, on the other hand, was all in, throwing herself into every moment with Kai, as if he had always been there. And joy, sweet, quiet joy, seemed to understand the weight of the situation more than the others. She stuck close to Maya, her little hand resting in her mother's. watching Kai with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. It had been a week since that night, and Kai had kept his word. He had visited every day, helping the girls with their toys, reading them stories, and simply being there. But Maya could feel the tension in the air. She was not sure if it was him or her that was still holding back, waiting for the other to make the first move. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the apartment was filled with the golden light of early evening, Kai sat with hope, faith, and joy on the floor, building a Lego castle. The girls were laughing, chattering away about how tall they wanted the towers to be, but Maya noticed how he was careful, how he listened to every word they said, how he didn't rush or try to control anything. It was the little things that made Maya see that maybe, just maybe, Kai could be the father he promised to be. But still, she kept her distance, sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to be busy with the dishes. Kai caught her eye from across the room. He had a way of looking at her that made everything feel like it was paused, like time was stretching out, just for the two of them. He smiled, and she couldn't help but smile back, though it was a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Want to join us?" Kai asked, his voice warm, but with an edge of hesitation, as if unsure whether he had the right to ask. Maya shook her head softly. "I'm okay, just..." She glanced at the sink, avoiding his gaze. "I'm just catching up on things." But Kai didn't look away. "You're doing all the hard work, Maya. Let me help. Let me be part of this." The words hit her harder than she expected. She set down the dish in her hand, feeling a lump form in her throat. She had spent so long doing everything on her own, building her life around the idea that she didn't need anyone else, that no one else would show up. The thought of someone truly being there, offering to help, offering to stay, was foreign. "I don't want to need you," she said quietly, almost to herself. "I've spent too long needing people who weren't there." Kai's expression softened, and he stood up, walking over to her with careful steps. "I understand," he said quietly, stopping just a few inches from her. "But I'm here now, and I want to be here in every way." Maya looked at him, her heart racing. She knew he meant it. She knew he was trying. But could she allow herself to lean on him again? Could she trust him, even when everything in her screamed to protect herself, protect the girls? "I don't know if I can do this," Maya whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't know if I can let you in again." Kai didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached out, gently taking her hand in his. His touch was steady, grounding her in a way she hadn't expected. "You don't have to let me in all at once. I'm not going anywhere. I'll wait, Maya. I'll wait as long as it takes." Maya felt the floodgates inside her heart open. She wanted to pull back, to protect herself from the flood of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. But something in Kai's words held her steady. Maybe it wasn't about rushing. Maybe it was about taking things one step at a time, like the tiny steps she had taken with the girls, one small move after another, until, eventually, the pieces started to fit together. "I'm scared," she said, her voice trembling. "I know," Kai whispered, his thumb brushing against her hand. "I'm scared too." They stood there for a moment, the weight of everything that had been lost hanging in the air between them. But for the first time, it didn't feel like an obstacle. It felt like the beginning of something. Something new, something uncertain, but something real. The girls were still playing on the floor, their laughter bubbling up and filling the space around them. The sound of their joy was like a lifeline to Maya, pulling her back into the present, into the little family that was starting to form before her eyes. "Do you think they'll ever forgive me?" Kai asked, breaking the silence. His voice was quiet, but it was filled with vulnerability. Maya looked at him, her heart heavy with all the years of pain and loss. "It's not about forgiveness," she said softly. "It's about showing them who you are. Showing them that you're here, that you want to be here. That's what matters." Kai nodded, his gaze dropping to the girls. "I'll do whatever it takes," he said, his voice steady now. "I'll earn their trust. I'll earn your trust, too." Maya felt a small shift inside her, a crack in the wall she had built around her heart. She wasn't ready to give all of herself, not yet. But maybe, just maybe, she could start by letting him in a little at a time. The next few weeks went by in a blur, but something inside Mia had started to shift. Kai was there every day. He was no longer a stranger. He wasn't the man who had disappeared from her life, leaving her to carry the weight of everything alone. No, he was here now, trying to be the father to their girls that he had never been. But it was hard for Mia to let go of the past, to let go of the hurt. She had spent so many years convincing herself she didn't need anyone. convincing herself that she could do everything on her own. She had learned how to protect herself, how to protect her children. And even though Kai was trying, Mia's heart wasn't ready to trust him completely. But she saw the way he looked at the girls, the way he was slowly learning how to be their dad. She saw how much it meant to him when he helped them build towers with Legos, or how his eyes softened when they laughed together. He was trying, and that was all Mia could ask for. One evening, after a long day, Mia sat in the living room, watching as the girls played. Hope, Faith, and Joy were sitting on the rug, their little hands busy with crayons and paper. Kai was sitting on the couch, his eyes on the girls, a soft smile on his face. For a moment, everything felt normal, like they were a family again. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy, but it was real. Mia leaned back against the couch, exhausted but content. She wasn't sure where this was all heading, but she knew one thing for sure. The pain from the past was starting to fade, even if it was just a little bit. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope. Kai turned to her, his expression serious. Maya, he began softly, I want to make this work. I want to be the father they deserve. I want to be the man you can trust. Mia looked at him, her heart heavy with the weight of everything she had carried alone. I want that too, she whispered, her voice breaking. I want to believe that we can be a family again. Kai's face softened, and he reached out, taking her hand gently. I know it's going to take time. I know I've hurt you, but I want to show you that I'm not the same person I was before. Mia looked down at their hands, feeling the warmth of his touch. She didn't know if she was ready to let him in fully, but she could see that he was trying. For the first time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, they could build something real. They could build a life together for the girls. As if sensing the change, the girls looked up from their drawing and giggled. Faith, with her wide smile, looked at Kai and said, Daddy, look. We made a picture of our family. Kai's eyes brightened, and he leaned forward to look at the picture. It was a simple drawing, just stick figures, but it was filled with hearts and love. It's perfect, he said, his voice full of emotion. This is us, isn't it? Mia felt her chest tighten. It wasn't perfect, but it was their family, and that was all that mattered. Hope looked at her mother, her eyes wide with that innocent curiosity. Mommy, she said softly, are we all going to be together now? Mia's heart skipped a beat. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew that the past didn't define them anymore. They had a chance to build something new, something stronger. Slowly, Mia nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. Yes, sweetheart, we're going to be together. All of us. Kai stood up and walked over to the girls, kneeling down to their level. I'll never leave again, he said, his voice firm. I promise. The girls cheered, their laughter filling the room. Faith jumped up and threw her arms around him, while Joy giggled and clung to his side. Hope, ever the serious one, smiled up at him, her small hand reaching for his. Mia watched them, her heart full. There was still so much to work through, so much healing to be done, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of the future. She wasn't afraid to hope again. She had her girls. She had Kai, and maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. As the night wore on, the girls finally went to bed, tired from all the excitement. Kai stayed behind, helping Mia clean up the living room. It was quiet now, just the two of them. Mia turned to him, her voice soft. I know it's going to be hard, but I'm willing to try. I'm willing to let us be a family again. Kai smiled, his eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, he whispered. I'll spend every day proving that I'm worthy of that trust. Mia nodded, her heart swelling with the hope that had been buried for so long. It wasn't perfect, and they weren't healed completely. But for the first time, Mia allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a future with Kai, with her girls, and with a love that was stronger than the pain of the past. The days following that promise felt like a gentle unfolding, like the first rays of sunlight breaking through the heavy clouds. It wasn't a sudden change, but a shift, small, steady steps towards something that felt more like healing than anything else. Kai was there every day, not just as the father he wanted to be, but as the man who was learning to be the partner Mia needed, too. The girls were adjusting, still a little unsure, but they were starting to accept him. Hope, ever observant, was still cautious, often studying Kai with those serious eyes of hers. Faith, always the optimist, followed him around, never hesitating to grab his hand or climb into his lap for a story. And Joy, sweet, gentle Joy, seemed to sense the changes more than the others, her quiet nature making her the most aware of the delicate emotional landscape around them. One evening, after dinner, Mia sat at the kitchen table, quietly cleaning up while the girls played in the living room. Kai was there with them, laughing as he helped them build a new tower with blocks. His laughter was light, genuine, and for the first time, Mia realized how much she had missed hearing it, how much they had both missed. Mia looked over at him, watching as he gently helped Faith with a Lego piece, her face lighting up with excitement at his attention. Something inside Mia shifted. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was trust, a trust she hadn't known she could give again. And in that moment, she realized something. They were building something new, not just a family, but a new life, piece by piece. Are you okay? Kai's voice broke through her thoughts, his presence now standing beside her. He had been watching her, sensing the quiet shift within her. Mia smiled softly, wiping her hands on the dish towel. Yeah, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm just taking it all in. He nodded, understanding. It's a lot. I know. But I'm here, Maya. For good. Mia looked up at him, her heart unexpectedly full. She had been so scared of what this would mean, of what would happen if she let him in again. But now, watching him with the girls, watching how he slowly carved out a place for himself in their lives, she felt something she hadn't felt in so long. Peace. I know, she said, her voice steady. And I'm starting to believe you. Kai smiled, but it wasn't a proud smile. It was something softer, something full of relief. He reached out, gently brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. Thank you, he said, his voice quiet but filled with meaning. I know I don't deserve your trust yet, but I'm working on it. Mia nodded, her heart swelling. I see that, and that's all I can ask for. For you to try. Kai stayed with them, helping with bedtime, reading stories, tucking the girls in with kisses. It was small, everyday moments, but they were moments that meant everything. And for the first time in years, Mia allowed herself to believe that they were building something real, something that could last. The next morning, as the sun streamed through the window, Kai stood by the coffee pot, a cup of coffee in his hands. The apartment felt different. There was life in it now, laughter, noise, love. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And that was enough. Mia stood beside him, pouring herself a cup of coffee. How's the day look? She asked, her voice still sleepy, but filled with warmth. Busy, Kai said with a grin. But it doesn't matter. Not anymore. Mia smiled at that. She could feel the weight of the past slowly lifting. It wasn't gone completely, but it wasn't controlling her either. She was learning how to forgive, how to move forward, and how to trust again. And in her heart, she knew it was time to stop looking back. Do you think they'll be okay? She asked quietly, her eyes soft as she looked toward the living room where the girls were playing. Kai followed her gaze, watching the girls for a moment. I think they're already better than okay, he said. They've got you, Maya. And now they've got me. Mia felt a lump form in her throat. She turned to face him, her voice barely a whisper. I never thought this could happen. I didn't think you'd come back. I never wanted to leave, he said, his voice filled with regret. But now that I'm here, I won't leave again. They stood there, silent for a moment, the weight of his words settling between them. It wasn't a grand declaration. It wasn't a perfect fix, but it was real. Later that day, as they sat around the table, the girls giggling and chattering, Kai looked at Mia, his gaze steady. So, he said with a small smile, what do you say? Should we try to make this work? Together? Mia met his eyes and felt a small smile tug at her lips. Yeah, she said softly. Let's try. The girls cheered, not fully understanding the weight of their words, but understanding enough to know that their family, imperfect and messy, was finally whole again. And for the first time in a long time, Mia allowed herself to believe that they could have everything they had dreamed of, the love, the family, and the future, together. As we come to the end of this emotional journey, there's so much we can learn from Mia and Kai's story. Their path wasn't easy. They faced years of separation, pain, and heartache. Yet, despite the struggles, they found their way back to each other. Not because they were perfect, but because they were willing to try, to face the past, and build something better. One of the biggest lessons here is that healing takes time. Trust doesn't happen overnight. It's earned through actions, not just words. But even the smallest steps forward can lead to the most powerful transformations. Don't let the past hold you back from the future. It's okay to be scared, to not know all the answers. What matters is that you keep moving forward. The road may be tough, but it's never truly over until you decide to give up. Another lesson is about forgiveness, not just for others, but for yourself too. Sometimes, we think we can't forgive or move forward because the hurt feels too deep. But Mia's journey shows us that forgiving yourself and others is the key to freedom. The love you've lost doesn't have to define you. You have the power to rebuild, to rewrite your story, to start again, no matter how many years have passed. Never give up on hope, even when it feels impossible. Like Maya and Kai, you can rebuild what's broken. It may take courage, but with each step you take toward healing, you get closer to the life you deserve. Take this as your reminder. It's never too late to change, to forgive, or to find love again. Every setback is just a setup for a comeback. Keep moving, no matter how hard it gets. You are stronger than you think, and the best chapters of your life are still ahead of you. So don't let past mistakes or fear of the unknown stop you from chasing your happiness. Keep trusting, keep healing, and never let anyone tell you that it's too late to make your dreams come true. This story isn't just Mia's or Kai's. It's your story too, of resilience, forgiveness, and the courage to start fresh. It's never over until you say it is. If this story resonated with you, I'd love for you to join our community. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on more powerful stories, lessons, and inspiration. Let's continue this journey of growth, love, and strength together. Subscribe now and keep moving forward because your story is just beginning.